Hello, everybody. Once again, this is Lehman Crafton, aka Zorval Chan, Less Than Guru, and we're going to be discussing another reality. This one is the reality of the Ravagons that you can see next to me over here. The Ravagons, being a source book, is interesting to me for a few reasons. The first reason being that this is a Ravagons are usually the bad guys, to put it mildly. Uh, the Ravagons were like high lieutenants of the Gaunt Man, and he would loan out, and I'm using a lot of air quotes because there's always an insidious plan behind the Gaunt Man. He just doesn't give out freebies. They always have a cost, even though he says that they're freebies. Everything from Gospog to Ravagon advisors. But he would give other High Lords Ravagon advisors. Okay, Ravagons are very, very powerful beings. They are based off of a survival of the fittest concept that over long period of time have become basically the fittest, which I'll get into later. So the ability to be a player that could play a Ravagon character is interesting. The Ravagons to me kind of look like Edenos with these weird wings, not quite bat wings. But they were a very, very powerful built and powerful threats against Storm Knights. They didn't have advantages like, say, giants from Isle or Tharkold do from Tharkold, or superpowers, pull powers from either Terra, Land Below, or Nile Empire, where you had a cost, or even client races from Space Gods where you have a possibility cost at the beginning of the adventure to keep some higher attributes. They didn't have that, but they had other things that made them pretty potent. So I wouldn't say that they were overpowered by any means. They were up there, but as a stat block against Storm Knights, they were really, really, really scary. They were something that if a game master dropped on a party, the party stopped and decided to do things maybe differently, or at least had a moment. So that's interesting to me. The other aspect that is interesting to me is, and if you know a book series or a book or a film or a movie or something that would say that the Ravagons are of this genre, please let me know, because from everything that I can see, this is something that was created for itself. It does not have a genre kind of associated with it. You can't look at it and say, okay, Living Land is based off of Lost World, dinosaurs, primitive things. Land Below is based off of things like Conan and Tarzan, and that the pulp ancient civilization type thing. Or you can't, in Jungles, you can't look at it and say Nile Empire is Indiana Jones pulp comics meets ancient Egyptian religion, cyber papacy, cyberpunk meets Catholic Church, or Isles, high fantasy, gothic horror for Orosh, corporate intrigue meets ninjas and martial artists for Nippon Tech, or the Terminator meets Hellraiser, Tharkold, or the Chariots of the Gods, space ancient aliens came and helped us space gods. So there's no like trope that you can just say, hey, read this book or watch this documentary when we're talking about space gods, and you've heard my rant about that. If you lasted that whole time, but you Ravagons is really hard to say what genre is it, to say watch this movie, watch this documentary, watch this, read this comic, do this. It's a world that is dying. And it's not even like a Dark Sun D&D type world. It's a dying world. Survival of the fittest has like taken on supreme meaning. There is a concept normally that to become possibility rated, you need to meet another reality. Your reality and another one needs to meet. You have to have a moment of crisis when you are confronted with this other reality, and that will either, as I discussed in one of the first videos when I did Torg, you will have that moment of crisis, and then you'll either fail it and just be an ordinary person, you will, or you make a decision that could either keep you in your reality or transform you to another, and then you become a stormer. And if you go the good way, you could become a storm knight, or the bad guys just, High Lord just consider everybody stormers anyway. But you had that. The Ravagons were possibility, or the vast majority of Ravagons were possibility rated without having that reality smash, without having that moment of crisis. And it's written in original Torg as it was just how tough it was to live on their world. If you were not possibility rated, you simply didn't survive, or you had a small chance of survival. It's a world that the Ravagons are built around their religion. It's a very religious survival of the fittest. Their deity, Ravok, has prophets that he comes down, and it's not good. It's not to save them. It's to kill everybody but the fittest. It is to have them hunt and be hunted and prove their worth. And by proving your worth, you can get a name, and then you kind of become an adult. And then if you do something like crazy, huge, big, you might get a second name, and be a legend for all the descendant Ravagons after that. So the cosm, the reality of the Ravagons is Tz'Ravok, Tz'Ravok. So pronounce it however you want to do it. I have to do it fast. TZs, even though I speak Russian decently, is very hard for me to do. Whatever the Midwestern Missouri, St. Louis accent type thing is, is just hard. So usually I either just make it a Z, like czar, instead of tsar, or I just say it really fast, like Ravok. So that's the name of the reality of the Ravagons. The Gaunt Man, and why they became like big bads, or at least tough lieutenants, very, very scary opponents to the Storm Knights, is because the Gaunt Man sends out dim threads, which are like small little wormholes. Every once in a while, you send a bunch out to the Cosmverse, and he'll find other cosms, and he'll decide, is this cosm even worth looking at? Nope. Okay, put it. Don't even need to worry about it. Oh, this cosm, do I want to do something now to it, like invade it, or do I want to wait? Do I see possibilities of the future? Something like what he did when he found Core Earth, is he realized this is something that I definitely want to do, but I don't have the ability right now to do it, so I'm going to make a plan to do that. So kind of like when he had just found out that Earth exists, but before he had even invaded Gaia with Orosh, he came across the Ravagons, and they kind of intrigued him as oh wow, there's a lot of stormers here, and they don't have a High Lord, they don't have a darkness device, they don't meet other cosms, and realities don't clash. But it interested him because they were very, very powerful. So he went down to the world and contacted a priest, and there's a whole story in the Ravagon source book. Basically read his mind and found out they were based on this spiritual thing of this deity, Ravok, who would send prophets down and like severely test the Ravagons. So the Gaunt Man decided, I'm going to be the next prophet. So he kind of changed his shape and made himself look like a Ravagon, and came down and said, I'm the prophet. And he had, through his darkness device and through his own self, is massively powerful. So any Ravagon who's like, no, you're a false prophet, he was able to, slap up and kill or whatever, and was able to convince them. So he bamboozled them, he scammed them, whatever you want to say. Basically, he convinced them that he was this prophet, and then he like showed himself as the Gaunt Man, but was like, I'm just taking this form. So the Ravagons still believe, even though he looks like the Gaunt Man now and not like a Ravagon, they do still believe that he is this prophet, that just for whatever reason he needs to assume this other form that looks like a gaunt human type thing. So he basically takes the Ravagons as almost like horrors and terrors of his world, and a lot of them, not the majority, but a lot of them over time would transform to Orosh. They would be around Orosh so much, and their leader, Ravagon, actually transformed to Orosh. But the Ravagon's world, the axioms, the world laws, and stuff are very interesting, and so a lot of them won't transform because they have an advantage with their own reality. So, and personally, my own canon of my Cosmverse that I've been thinking about since Torg Original and within Torg Eternity is, to me, Ravagons are kind of equivalent, or if you use anti not as opposite, but in the original Greek as in place of, they're kind of anti-core Earth. They have a lot of the ability of core Earth to be able to use that possibility energy. And if you look at Torg Eternity, core Earthers are ones that can stop from being disconnected and can do and manipulate reality. In original Torg, it's the Ravagons who do this. So that's something that's always interesting to me, is they're able to manipulate reality even without being exposed to other realities. So that's something that's very, very interesting to me. So let's go along and let's do the axioms and world laws, and then I want to just talk about the character creations and that. The Ravagons book is something that you could use if you wanted to as a source book. As a cosm that you just played Ravagons on it. The source book describes the world pretty decently. It's a thin book, but it describes the world pretty decently. So you could have that if you kind of like Terra. You can mix it with Torg, or you can keep it separate, or you could even have a Ravagons versus Terra and just have those book in the main rule book, and that would be something that could be really interesting, because survival of the fittest, only the biggest and baddest are able to survive, and you have that world against a high pulp action world. That could be interesting. But the Ravagons, the genre is confusing to me because it doesn't fit. Like everything else in Torg, you can just point to things, and Ravagons can't. But let's go through the axioms. So the axioms are magic is 7. So magic isn't very common at all. It's equivalent to core Earth. And the next video of core Earth, I'll explain why spells can be cast, because normally a axiom level of 7 would not allow the casting of spells like blah 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 blah, make a spell. So the Ravagons really have no use for magic. There's rumors that at one time there was a high magic, but with ever the planet dying, the cosm dying, and the spiritual aspect of it basically made magic not relevant. So you might have ancient hidden tomes and ruins and stuff that might be found, but current day Tz'Ravok does not have magic. There's like no magic users really. So then we have social, and social is an 18, and so that's the equivalent of, say, medieval stuff. It's the same as the cyber papacy. It's the same as Isle. So that's how social is. Social is basically the Ravagons aren't the biggest, baddest, most nasty things on their cosm, so they do have to work together. There is that whole survival of the fittest, and that could have taken over everything and just had each individual Ravagon as just focused on survival, but the social aspect allows them to do that as a group, and that's how they're able to take on bigger and badder things on their home world. It's also connected to their spiritual axiom, which is a 17, and as you've heard in many of my videos, basically there's so many 17s, and when I was saying it yesterday about Tharkold going, you have Land Below, you have Nile Empire, you have the Tharkold, you have I believe even Aurorish, so many are just 17s. Well, the Ravagons are 17. I was looking at this just to make sure. Yep, 17 spirituals. So it's one of those which I don't know if that was just something that was like a comfort zone for West End games at the time, but it's like you're either around core Earth. Yeah, the one exception up here with Living Land, and then pretty much everything is 17 and then aisle 16, so really really close. So I'm not sure what that is, but they have a survival of the fittest. I explained earlier about Ravok and sending prophets down to test them, etc. So the spiritual is 17, allows miracles and stuff like that, and then the tech, the tech is 12. So the tech is beginning Middle Ages, whereas Isle is more the cusp of Middle Ages and Renaissance. They have firearms. Firearms are 14, so they wouldn't be there. But you could have metal weapons with the Ravagon Cosm of Tz'Ravok, or you could have like mail armor and stuff like that. So it's lower Middle Ages, not the end Middle Ages. So those are the axioms, and then we have world laws. So there's the world law to make sure, because I didn't have a lot of players. I had one player that he was always, if his character died, he was going to be a Ravagon, and his character lasted forever and never died. So the character was one of my first two people of Torg. If you have watched that video, he was the ninja, and the character survived, and he never got to play his Ravagon, but he's always wanted to play an original Torg Ravagon. So I never did have an actual player, but we have the law of most real. So the law of most real is interesting. It means that you don't disconnect in any other reality as long as you keep to your own axiom levels and stuff like that. So if you just do your own things, you won't disconnect. So that's pretty potent. That's pretty powerful. Of course, if you're using one of the low tech 12 weapons or under, you're probably not going to disconnect anywhere in the living land, but the spirit you might, or something else, or miracles, could depending on where you are. So that's always interesting. There's no chance of disconnecting if you keep with your own reality. If you don't do anything against the Ravagon reality, then you don't have to worry about disconnecting. Then they have a law of survival of the fittest. Like I said, survival of the fittest is one of those things. And what this has is it really wouldn't affect Stormers or Storm Knights possibility rated Ravagons. It affects the Ords. It means that in original Torg, there were two charts of damage. And there was one chart that was what damage you might take for being Ord, and another one if you're reality rated, possibility rated. And the Ravagon Ords would use the reality rated chart. So normally the ordinary chart, you would take more damage than you would as a possibility rated character. So that's interesting. Now there was a I want to say a supplement somewhere that, like, as the war went on, there got to a place that if game masters wanted to, they could say that so much possibility energy had been taken from core Earth that there was no longer the distinction between Ords and possibility rated characters and NPCs and threats, and it gave one chart, but that was kind of an option thing, and I don't even remember what book that was, but I do remember that being a option that game masters could say after a certain while to kind of show that Earth is losing, it's getting more desperate. But the law of survival of the fittest made it so that even the ordinary Ravagons had an edge against ordinary other things. So that's interesting. And then the law of transcendence, which is interesting. So transcendence is that moment of crisis when you become reality rated. They can sense that. And that's what the Gaunt Man liked. And that was one of the reasons he uses them as hunters to kill Stormers so they don't become Storm Knights. As soon as they're sensed, if a Ravagon is within the area, it's there. You've just learned, if you're just the guy, and like I mentioned, oh, there's an orc in my house, I go get my gun and I fire, and I'm still trying to figure this out. Well, now a Ravagon pops in on me, and the Ravagon isn't just an ordinary orc or even a low possibility rated orc. It is a powerful being, survival of the fittest. Whatever your beliefs on evolution is, it's gotten to a point of it is a apex predator. If the Gaunt Man has brought him to this reality, it means he's one of the the top of the top. You don't have a chance as a single Storm Knight newbie. And he could either kill you, or if he senses or realizes you might be useful to the Gaunt Man, he will grab you and take you to the Gaunt Man, or one of the Gaunt Man's lieutenant to be recruited or killed or worse. So those are kind of the war laws of the Ravagons. One of the interesting things, along with that possibility sense, is they could do what was called a possibility rip. So they would be able to use, I think it was a skill or something, and they could take your possibility. That possibility energy that you have to do things, well, now it's draining you of those. It can rip those out. So that was what was the main thing that really scared players, because as a group, and especially once they get experienced, oh, Ravagon, and then all of a sudden it starts ripping their possibilities from them. That's what makes you Storm Knights. That's what gives you that energy to make those roles better, to do those better things, to do something that's not just what an ordinary person can do. That is scary. Also, with original Torg, possibilities were experience. So it was taking your experience. It was very much like old school D&D, where if you faced undead and had a level drain, you lost experience. It wasn't this, oh, we cast a spell and you get it back. No, boom, you lost experience. Gone. Forever. Not coming back. So that is scary, because not only can you not use that energy now, you can't use it in the future. If you wanted to get a skill or something like that, you could not. It was gone. It was not able to be used. The one thing interesting that when they have the templates in the back of the different type of Ravagons, it's probably not going to show it up, but you've seen when I've held these up. The Ravagons in here all start with 5 possibilities. Every other template is 10 possibilities. And then you might have to spend some of those possibilities to keep whatever you're starting. Special things are depending on what realm and what you are. Some of them had a possibility cost, as I've mentioned in other videos. Ravagons only started with 5. So that was kind of to show that they come from a place that is dying. There wasn't a lot of possibility energy in their home cosm, but it did. They like, I got 5, and now I'm going to rip some of yours so I can get more. The player characters were Ravagons who realized or had a suspicion that the Gaunt Man tricked them. So they weren't nice. They were kind of meant to be like the techno demons, and I actually didn't really touch on that fact. I already did that video. It's not that big of a thing, but Tharkoldu were allowed to be player characters, and the thing that the kind of reasoning is they might not like the actual other Storm Knights, but they didn't like the High Lord even more. She was a race. She was not a Tharkoldu. I am not going to serve a Tharkoldu. I might work with some race and humans against her, but I'm not going to submit to race and humans. So you had that type of Tharkoldu. So the Ravagons kind of have that also, that thing of the Gaunt Man tricked us, or I think the Gaunt Man tricked us. So you have that. With the Ravagon working for the Gaunt Man so much, a lot of them did transfer. When I say a lot, I mean more than just a couple. I don't mean a vast majority, because their natural abilities were so good, but some of them actually became horrors in Orosh. They switched realities, and you'll see if you look at the Orosh source book, in the creature section, they do have Ravagons listed there because some Ravagons converted to Orosh. They just hung around Orosh so long and decided that that's what they wanted to transform into. Because they would have to decide to do that, because as long as they kept their baseline and they didn't do anything over their axioms and they didn't do some weird stuff with world laws, they were safe. They would not disconnect. So that is the thing that they had to specifically do, disconnect and transform. So that's kind of what I have for Ravagons today. It was a separate cosm. It wasn't an invader. They were convinced by the Gaunt Man that he was their prophet, and they follow him. Some don't, and those could be player characters. It doesn't mean that they're nice player characters. It just means it's the enemy of my enemy. Could be my ally, even if not a friend, type thing. So that's what we have for Ravagons. Tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow, as I've been putting these out every day, and I plan to keep doing that. But the weekend's over, so it'll be a Monday, so we'll see how I feel. Hopefully I will do the Core Earth. It is a book called Delphi Council, but it is basically the Core Earth source book of original Torg. And that then should wrap up my settings. There are other settings, but they're usually like 1 or 2 pages mentioned in a book that wasn't a main book. So I'll probably just do that as part of a wrap-up video. So I do thank you for coming along with me on this journey. I got a couple more subscribers, so thank you for a few more subscribers. And if you like the video, hit the like. If you dislike it, hit dislike. If you want to subscribe and get this content as it comes out, I want to do these original Torg bang 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 bang. And then I think I'm just going to jump into Torg Eternity after that. Torg Eternity, though, will not be a complete review for a while because some of the cosms haven't been released yet. So I will do them as I get the physical copies. So hopefully soon, Tharcold maybe this month or next month might come out physically. And then as Orosh and Pan Pacific come out, I'll do those. But I probably will do a setting and a mechanics, cosms like I'm doing now, a wrap up even before the cosms, just maybe my ideas of the differences between the two and what I think of them and stuff like that. But so that will be going on, and then once I get to the end of material that is released and out there for Torg Eternity, then I'll jump into other role-playing games that I've played and or game mastered. Like I said in original, I will try to make sure that I've either played at least once, but probably multiple times, or game mastered, not just things that I've heard. So I don't want to discuss a game that I haven't never played. So that's kind of my, and they probably will be a one video. I probably won't do the huge ones. I just love Torg so much and want to describe everything I can, and I realize that it couldn't be done correctly even within 3 hours. So that's why these and the Torg Eternity ones will be longer, and why the future ones will be probably shorter. Who knows? We'll see when it gets there. So once again, I am Lehman Crafton, aka Zorvalachan, Less Than Guru. Thank you very much, and until next time,